is Rebecca Livingston. You are listening to ABC Radio Brisbane. Aged care in Australia is at a crossroads after the damning Royal Commission and the industry response to COVID-19. Public angst towards the sector has grown considerably, and trust and confidence has collapsed. According to the latest Inside Aged Care report, only 1 in 5 Australians have a high degree of trust in aged care. It's not good for residents, it's not good for staff either, who are doing their best to do a good job. Sean Rooney is the Chief Executive Officer at Leading Age Services Australia. Sean, good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca.
What's your sort of initial take on this response that trust has collapsed in aged care?
Well, I think it's a timely report. It gives, a warning shot to everybody involved in aged care. But I think importantly, what it reflects is what the community thinks. And that's really important that we see this as the desire of the community alongside the desire of workers and providers in the system to do better and to embrace those issues identified by the Royal Commission process and make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to take advantage of this once-in-a-generation opportunity to make the aged care system better. When we had a Royal Commission that found that the aged care system in its current state is unacceptable and unsustainable, and as a nation we cannot tolerate that anymore. And that's why we need to get behind the reform agenda and work diligently and collaboratively with government and others to make sure we end up with the aged care system that older Australians need and deserve, and that aged care workers and aged care providers want to deliver.
Is there a sort of a time frame and a strategy that's clear and practical going forward, Sean? Because it's been a couple of years now, the Royal Commission, it's been the challenges of COVID-19. Like, at what point should we really see things improve?
Look, I think you're on the money there. Later this week, it'll be 100 days since the federal government released their response to the Royal Commission. There is a 5-year plan with 5 pillars of focused activity. To date, it's fair to say that the government's been doing work, we've been doing work, but those things haven't been brought together, and that's a concern, because if you look at the history of reform in the aged care system in Australia over many decades, we have been very clear what the problems are. We've always had very clear solutions, but we have failed in the implementation, and we need to get that right. And we're talking to government about we need to do this together. We can't have this done to older Australians. We can't have it done to workers or to providers. It needs to be done with everyone. So we are designing things with all the people involved and delivering it through them rather than doing it to them. And that's a very key message we're sending to government.
You're listening to Sean Rooney from Leading Age Services Australia, who's been looking at the Inside Aged Care report that shows only 1 in 5 Australians have a high degree of trust in aged care. What does the report say about those people living inside aged care homes? How do they feel about the care they're receiving?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. The general public has a very dim view of aged care services, but if you look at people living in aged care homes or people receiving care and support in their own family homes, and also their family members and loved ones, there are higher degrees of satisfaction, but there is room for improvement. And I think this gets back to what we're seeing now with what the Royal Commission has recommended. It is a total overhaul of the aged care system, and it starts with having the right policies in place, then having the appropriate regulations, so quality standards and an appropriate approach to be able to maintain and regulate those standards. And then finally, and so importantly, that the system and the aged care services and workers are resourced, are funded to deliver the care that's needed. And we certainly saw evidence to the contrary in the Royal Commission process. So these are the building blocks that we need to get right. So aged care workers and services are resourced and enabled to deliver high quality care with safety and compassion always. That's what older Australians expect, and that's what we want to deliver.
So at some point, is there going to be a massive recruitment drive for aged care staff?
Well, there's already work underway for that, but as everyone, as your callers would know, there's significant pressures country with respect to dealing with COVID, and aged care is basically putting all the effort we can into keeping people safe, which is exactly what we need to be doing. That's putting a lot of pressure on workforce, particularly now that we don't have immigration levels to what we've had previously. So we've been talking to government about coming up with a near-term strategy to ensure not just aged care, but disability, acute care in hospitals, primary care and general practice, that the care economy is adequately resourced with high-performing, good quality people that have caring as part of their DNA. They're the types that we want to attract into our sector. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that they are paid fairly. And there's a process underway with the Fair Work Commission at the moment with respect to aged care workers to ensure that they are paid appropriately for the valuable work that they do. That's part of the solution as well.
What percentage approximately of the aged care workforce are international workers?
Look, the last aged care worker census data that was reported was 2016. And at that stage, we saw a third of the aged care workforce were born overseas. And that's part of the strength of the aged care system, is that we have a diverse workforce. It's predominantly a female workforce. I think it's nearly high 80% female workforce. And, to be able to deliver that person-centred care, we are a nation of immigrants, and having people from different ethnic backgrounds, different cultural and linguistic backgrounds is really important to ensure that they can communicate and engage with the people who have come and settled in Australia and are playing out their older years here as well.
It is a complex and crucial part of life in Australia, and let's hope that light continues to be shined on it. Sean, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rebecca.
Sean Rooney, the Chief Executive Officer at Leading Age Services Australia. Interesting, isn't it? A third of the workforce born overseas. What does that say about us as a culture, as a workforce, and what happens when there's no international workers travelling back and forth at the moment? It's not just aged care, it's hospitality, it's retail, it's lots of sectors that are impacted. But this Inside Aged Care report that's being looked at by Leading Age Services Australia still paints a pretty tough picture of aged care and the perception of it from the general public, from people in aged care homes and staffers as well. If you're connected to aged care as a resident, as a nurse, I'd love to hear from you this morning.